Mr. Dougal Bowen,
Hello.
welcome to CamTalks.
Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, thank you very much for coming in. This is a bit of a role reversal, isn't it?
It is a little bit, yeah, but nice.
Yeah, normally I'm being interviewed by you on
You are.
on your lovely radio station.
Yep.
Dougal, thanks for joining me today. How's your day been? You must be busy.
Well, I'm always busy. I myself did an interview this morning with Lee Fluitt, which was interesting.
We've had Lee
very
on the
successful
show.
play, yeah.
How's Lee this morning?
He's very good. He's annoyingly talented. I told him so.
I think I told him that as well. Got to get a little jab in there at times.
Yeah.
You know. And what is it you would? I mean, obviously, I know you interview a lot of people on this island. You must have interviewed more people on this island than anyone.
I don't know really. It's in the hundreds, for sure over the years. But thankfully, people seem to like speaking to me, so that's always helpful. And I think I'm not confrontational, so I think sometimes that brings the best out in people. They don't feel threatened because they're like me at the moment. Actually, are very nervous. Because it's not something that you're used to doing necessarily. So you want to feel at ease. And I think it's a bit like us. We're having a chat.
Yeah, well, don't feel nervous at all.
No.
I mean, we can always just, delete this episode from the internet.
Yeah.
Although this is the point. I really hope that these episodes get to be seen by people and
So do
outlive both
I.
of us.
Yes.
It'd be amazing to. I mean, actually, what it was that inspired me to do this is that we recently lost Graham McKinley.
Yep.
And I used to speak to Graham, about all of his stories and stuff like this. And I was really gutted thinking afterwards that I never got a chance to document it, and so I'm on this bit of a crusade at the moment, trying to find out the most fascinating stories from individuals.
Well, that's good, isn't it? I mean, it's history in the days of your dad as well, and Ray Parkin and things like that. To be able to have that on record, I think is incredible.
What is it about stories that you like? Because you must hear so many stories from people. What is it that you find fascinating about it?
Well, people are fascinating, and we think perhaps we know somebody. Actually, we don't. We don't know. They're very unassuming, go around their normal daily business, and they're real characters. I mean, they've achieved so much in their lives, I guess, that they keep under a bushel. So, and the history. I love the history of the island. I love island life in itself. Very few places where you can go where you wave to everybody. You say good morning, and particularly when, if you like, holidaymakers come over, they're quite taken aback that you say good morning to them because they're not used to that.
No,
and it's something perhaps we take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how did you first come to Alderney? Were you born here? Or
there's a bit of a story. I always say I am an Alderney boy. But my mum, we were living here when she was with child with me, but she had a condition called toxemia, which is like a blood infection. So for safety reasons, she couldn't have me here, but she didn't have any family in Guernsey. So we went over to England where her family was, and I was born in a place called East Dulwich.
East Dulwich?
Yep. Actually.
Is that where the accent comes from?
Southeast London, I suppose so. Yeah. Not particularly good memories of London, I have to say. I think because from here, it was never quite home, if you see what I mean. But so then when she had me, we came straight back here. So, but my wife always reminds me that she's a proper local. Local. Yeah.
Wow. What was it like growing up on Alderney back then?
Incredible. Freedom. You could go out. You'd probably spend, in those days, I was beach blonde because we spent all our time on the beaches, take our Marmite sandwiches or something like that, and we were there all day. And there's very few places that you can go and do that. So there's a real freedom.
Wow.
And if you perhaps stepped out of line, in those days you could get away with it. Somebody would just give you a clip around the ear and say, don't be doing that.
No, you can't do that these days, can
you?
You
can't.
Yeah,
everything is a bit. I think, obviously it's a difficult subject, but I think what it did teach us in those days was respect, to respect elders and to respect other people, I think, in general. I mean, when I was really young, we weren't allowed to speak unless we were spoken to. So it was a sort of a, you know.
And now you can't get them to shut up.
Well, they can't really. They say they can't get me to shut up, to be honest with you. So,
well, but that's the nice thing about this island. It's very open with its communication. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if alcohol has something to do with it, but
well, that loosens the tongue for sure.
It really does, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And back then, I mean, what was the island like in terms of? I guess, I mean, we must have had the same as what we've got now, but just different characters, different faces.
Oh, there were real characters. I'm not saying that there aren't characters today, but there were real characters that we still speak of with fondness, even though they've been gone a long, long time. You still, do you remember when? And there were some of those characters that I used to go to school with, because I'm old enough to know that I used to go to school where the museum is.
Wow.
And then in 1969, we left that school to go down to the new school. And the funny story about that is the brand new desks arrived down at the new school, but the chairs didn't. So we had to carry our chairs from the old school down to the new school. And we were sort of fairly young then. So we had to take a rest, and we had the chairs to sit on the way.
Wow.
So it was quite a...
So you walked down Victoria Street?
We walked from where the museum is now, down Victoria Street, down Bray Road, and into the brand new school.
God, that's amazing, man. I mean, the fact that those lovely cobbles,
yeah,
you've really lived a life, on this island.
And I might add that Victoria Street was a two-way street then.
No.
Yes.
How the hell did that work?
Well, it worked, oddly enough. And I remember when we were down at the old school, he had the big bus, and a certain, I think Gary Chalker was one, a Danny Simo used to be the bus driver. He used to drive up through town with the bus and turn to the left and do about a 3 or 4 point turn and get round the corner.
Wow, I know love that. So it was a different island back then, completely. I mean,
yeah,
very, very, very long time ago. So do you remember? I mean, was there? I know obviously this is post-war, but like, was there more remnants of the Nazi occupation here? Like, were you more aware of it?
No, not for me, really. My dad, he was one of the people that was evacuated, and they were evacuated up to Glasgow. A lot went to Glasgow. And I think my dad actually joined up when he was in Glasgow. So there wasn't that. But people that I've spoken to, either through interviews or things like that, were saying all they remember was hundreds and hundreds of push bikes on the island, literally hundreds of push bikes. And obviously it was quite a difficult time because they came back, everything was wrecked. Everything. And even me only recently has found out that when the surrender was signed on the 16th of May, that there was up to about 30,000 landmines.
That's crazy,
on the island at that time. So the pure desolation, I guess, that they must have come back to. And oddly enough, there's a documentary on one of the TV programs at the moment. It was on last night about the occupation, and I've got a feeling it might be moving a bit to Alderney next week. So perhaps there'll be some more information that we aren't possibly aware of, and maybe.
Well, I recently covered the Liberation Day events for the Henry Euler Trust, and that was fascinating. I mean, I don't think I was ever made aware in school of the occupation in the Channel Islands. No. And so then to find out that on Alderney we have this amazing trust who are, I mean, Colin Partridge is just an encyclopedia.
He's such a historian, yeah.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely mad. He knows so many things. And I mean, hopefully we'll get him as a guest on here, because it's that living history that I hope that we can sort of protect.
And he is so very good at it. But also on that documentary last night, it was interesting that Hitler knew only too well that it was the one place where they had British prisoners.
Oh, right.
So that was his part of invading England
I
almost.
see. Right.
So
Didn't he
yeah.
want to turn this into a holiday camp or something?
Well, he did the complete opposite,
He did
really.
it. Yeah.
It was a part of the Atlantic Wall, I guess,
Yeah.
would be
Yeah. Yeah.
described,
Yeah.
hence all the bunkers and everything like that.
And the camps, I mean, to think that we had, concentration camps on British soil, I think it's a bit strange really growing up here and playing in, these bunkers and you go to Lagersilt up
Yeah,
by the airport and,
yeah,
I mean, you go to Auschwitz and it's all very, rightfully so created as a tourist destination or
yeah.
as a way to remember the
Mm.
atrocities. But here, we've got a little plaque on the front gates and then you can just go run around and,
Yeah, you can. And I don't think we've got a real appreciation of possibly what went on. I can sort of understand to a certain extent, not that I don't think that people wanted to keep it quiet particularly, but it was all a bit raw.
bit hush hush.
Uh, yeah, and I think you sort of maybe underplay the amount of prisoners and everything there was here, but over the years, because I don't think under official secrets that you're allowed to release anything for about 70 years. So if things are trickling out a little bit now that maybe we weren't aware of.
Well, it's quite hard to find out though, isn't it? Because I mean, there's been the Lord Pickles inquiry,
Yeah.
which, to be honest with you, I didn't think was very thorough.
Well,
I've grown up with the stories from the books that are all out of print now. I mean, Brian Bonnard wrote a fantastic book called The Island of Dread,
yeah,
which was about a young Georgy Kondakov, who a 15-year-old lad brought to Alderney. Did his time here and then got chucked in the gulags when he went back to Russia,
exactly.
and it wasn't until he came back here, I believe in the 70s or something, that he pointed everything out and said, oh, that's what happened over there. But I think because these books are not academically proven,
No.
they didn't find their way into the academic research. And so actually when I do I see the documentaries on TV, I'm just blowing up with like all this like, but what about that? What about that? It doesn't seem there's an awful lot. I mean, apart from people like Colin Partridge, and of course the Alderney Society and a few really good individuals here that are just passionate about it.
There's somebody that did I don't know if it's 2 or 3 little documentaries. What's it? Roland's brother.
Yes, yeah, Charlie.
Charlie,
amazing
and
job.
he asked me once to do a voice, and I said, "Do a voice?" And it was really sort of difficult, and he said, "No, it's a specific piece that I want you to do." I said, "But I don't know if I could do that justice." And why it's so vivid to me, it was a prisoner's of account of where he used to get beaten by a garden hose, and it was hard to try and portray that in almost a matter of fact, but realised the real pain, and that somebody actually picked up that it was my voice, but said that the way it's portrayed, and it's all the way through that, because I think that's what resonates with people is when you do things like that, and then you have to try and carry on.
I think you did a great job. I mean, I've seen that documentary, and I mean that's the thing is that you are a little bit of a performer.
Well, I never thought I was because, to be honest, through my life, through my young life, I've really been an introvert, I have to say. So I was a bit shy, maybe bullied a bit at school and everything, and so a lot to deal with, if you like. And then as I got older, perhaps a bit wiser, I it's a funny thing to say, but I've never been scared to make a fool of myself, if that makes sense. So it doesn't kill you, it doesn't. People can tend to laugh now with you rather than at you. So it's and then doing radio really helped me because I am a good talker. I mean, I can probably talk for England, but it brought me out of myself a bit. I remember the very first time I did a program, it was very robotic because you want to get you want to get things right, but things that resonate with you. For instance, the thing that resonated with me was something from a very famous presenter called Terry Wogan. Now, Terry Wogan said that when you do radio, the thing about radio, and he used to broadcast to thousands of people. He said, but how you need to put it across is that you are speaking to that individual, either in their bathroom, their bedroom, or kitchen, and you are just having a one-way conversation with them, because it makes them feel special. It makes them feel like a friend, and they've got a friend. And it's odd, the bits of advice over the years that you get, and that really resonated with me.
I love that. I'm going to try and remember that now, because I mean, obviously we're doing a podcast here, so we got the cameras rolling. I have to warn you, I only have 7 hours of memory on these cameras, so let's try not to
Edit
go.
it.
Well, let's not go to 7 hours, but nowadays the new medium is obviously not just the audio, but the video as well. So actually, people will be watching this. Maybe they're having a terrible time, and I like it when people say to me, "Oh, I saw that interview you did with someone." And it is, you get a really, it's fulfillment, really. Feels like you're doing a good job.
Yeah, and that's why, again, I wanted to mention the word bullying, because it's a very difficult thing to deal with. I mean,
And to overcome.
And I was living in England at the time, so if you like, I was getting beaten up for my dinner money because I refused to hand it over, because I can be quite stubborn.
No.
So, but what I did, and it was even a thing where the police wanted to take it up, and my mum and dad wanted to protect me,
Yeah, of course.
and wouldn't let me go through the experience of court, if you like. But it's grounded me as a person. It's made me stronger. It's made me realise that there's nothing really that you can't cope with. But I guess the hardest thing is actually talking about it, because nobody wants to admit that they were bullied. Maybe they think of it as a sign of weakness or something like that, but it's not. It's we're all human, and we've all got different levels of strength.
How severe was the bullying? I mean,
it's very severe. I got regular beatings, and I would refuse to hand over my dinner money. So it was pure and simple as that. I one stage I'd had a knife held to my throat, and the odd thing is I still wouldn't give in. My granddad, where we lived in the flats, he was looking out the window at the time, and he saw this happen, and I never even thought of anything about it. And then a few weeks later, he said, "I just want to tell you, I'm very proud of you." He said, "I thought you were a bit stupid because
should have just given you money."
Well, yeah, but it's I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what it is that makes people, for one, do that, to put you through that.
Well, where do you think it came from for you? I mean, you must have had some role models who kind of,
But my mum and dad were my role models, because I respected them. At the time when I was a child, I probably didn't in the way that I should have. But what they brought me up with standards, I think, and they brought me up to be well mannered, and oddly enough, that's passed on to my wife and I, and we sort of tried to bring our children up in the best way. Again, to teach them respect. In fact, I think the biggest compliment we had, we were stopped by somebody and we said, "We wish our kids could be like yours."
Aww.
But that's it's a bit of luck, but it's not all luck.
Yeah.
You've got to have the support of your parents, and it makes them better people, I think.
Do you think that experience hardened you, softened you? I mean, I think they always say that, like, if someone goes through some traumatic experiences, you either become, completely hardened to the world, and, or you become a little bit softer.
I'm definitely not hardened to the world. I'm a softie.
Yeah, I mean, me too, man.
I love a good weepy film, or something that makes me cry, maybe, or laugh, or so I'm not scared. I try to do it a bit more on my own, where people aren't watching me do it. But no, I think it makes you more susceptible to people.
Yeah,
open, and you understand things. And I always, through my career with the different things that I've done, there's always two sides to a story. Mm-hmm. So yes, somebody can be bad, but then you don't know about perhaps their upbringing, mm-hmm. and where they were. So I think I think it's more not stronger or weaker, but being able to understand. I think that everybody is different.
It's that empathy that you embody because you've needed it in the past. You're like, well, I needed someone to know that I was going through
Yeah.
things, and so I know that I may not have all of the answers and know what someone else is going through, but you're open.
But that's a very difficult thing to admit, though. The thing that you need help, or the thing because you're embarrassed by it, really, that I'm letting somebody bully me. And that's difficult. And I don't want to, because I am a really happy-go-lucky person. My glass is always half full. It's never half empty. And that. But I think I just needed to say that happened in my childhood,
really
if you like.
appreciate
So
that,
not
yeah.
everything is wonderful always.
No, and this is kind of why I like having these talks, because I want people to realize that, like, you know, the world is not black and white. Like,
No.
people have stories and past. Do you ever think about those bullies and where they might be today? I mean,
Not so much. I think that the only message that I can possibly give to a bully, I think, is that when they grow up, when they perhaps get married and they have children, and something maybe happens with their children, that they think, actually, I was one of those bullies, and they would hate it. That in fact, so if there is a message that gets to them, I'm hoping that might be the one. It's
Absolutely,
not always
yeah.
going to, but I would hope.
Well, I
that would
hope
be the
they're
case.
listening to this now.
Well,
Yeah.
well, who knows?
If so, please send your apologies to Ryduna Radio.
I don't even think actually that I want an apology, because I guess it's part of growing up and making it. But I just want people to realise that there are ramifications, because not everybody's strong,
Yeah.
and it can drive to despair, or even worse than that. And if they've got nobody that they can speak to, nobody they can tell, and then it's sort of too late, isn't it?
Who did you tell at the time? Was your mum you go to, or do you remember?
Well, I had to tell my mum and my dad, because the police were involved, because they wanted it to go to court.
Of course.
Because I don't think it was just me. I think there was a number of people, but because I was sort of young, they didn't want me to go through that trauma of going to court. And I guess in those days you wouldn't have a private room or something, so it would have been very public. So it was, I guess it was when the police got involved that I had no choice but to say, look, this has been
that
going.
must have been quite empowering as well, like to have the police. I mean, thank God in this country, you know, we have a police force who actually does take, you know, a knife crime very, very seriously. Of course, nowadays a lot of this is all online, and the online bullying that kids can follow them. I mean, it's in their bedroom, you know, they'll be sitting there on their phones, and
you don't know.
And you don't know.
This is the thing. You don't know, and that with all the sort of things. And I remember having an interview with you about AI, and I said, yeah, it can actually be a wonderful thing, but if it's used badly for either to maybe get some photographs of people or something, and then use it as a form of blackmail or something like that, I think when you're of a certain age, you just don't know how to deal with that, and there's a real fear, and you can get dragged into something. So
it's I mean, the worst outcome, of course, is for someone to take their own life, you know, and we know that is a thing. That children's mental health is particularly scary, because I mean, yeah, we don't always know about it until it's too late, you know. And I've been working on a few mental health initiatives, and I've spoke to parents who have lost their, you know, children, you know, and only found out afterwards through, you know, the police investigating into their phones that actually, yeah, it was because they were being harassed online.
The children weren't able to discuss it with the parents, which is sad, and the parents, if you like, weren't able to get to the bottom of it. And it's so sad. It's so, but I have to say now, going through all perhaps the things that I did go through, and that's really why I've mentioned it, because there is always hope.
Mm.
You can come out of these things, and I hope it can make you a better person.
Well, I really appreciate that. I want to take a very quick break to thank Bell & Co for helping to sponsor this episode. If you're looking for a place to live on Alderney, whether it's renting or buying, go and visit Bell & Co. They have all the information about what's available on Alderney and can also help guide you to some of the best things to do on the island. Go and visit bellandcoalderney.com and find out how you can escape to paradise. Back to the episode. And where better to be in the world than Alderney to find a friend to talk to or someone to listen?
It's incredible to find a friend, although it can have the downside where, because it's so small, it's very difficult sometimes to speak to somebody confidentially about something like that. So it's odd, but it can be a very lonely place.
Well, this island definitely sometimes makes a mountain out of a molehill, but before you know it, that thing that you did is now going around the island. It's funny on Alderney because, a lot of people propose to people on beaches,
Yes.
And I remember one year finding out that someone's just been engaged before they even broke the news to their family. It was like we're in the Georgian and suddenly the whispers have gone around saying, just seeing them getting proposed on the beach, and the mum is like, what?
Yeah.
My daughter's just been, you go, yeah, that's how quickly news
One
spreads.
of my sons proposed at the top of Fort Albert.
Oh, that's lovely.
My son-in-law proposed to my daughter at Clonk as the moon was, the sun was going down, but my other son, he proposed to his girlfriend, then girlfriend, at Southampton Airport.
Classic.
Yeah.
So probably delayed.
All different.
I love that. So you really do have such a huge connection to this island, and your family do as well. Did your children grow up here as well?
Yeah, they did. They did grow up here. My two sons and my daughter were both all born in Guernsey. One of the reasons was because of the safety issue. So that's why people went to Guernsey, really. Was
safe as in terms of...
as if they needed, the patient needed medical care or something like that, or help or something like that. So that happened. And then going a complete circle, my granddaughter, she was actually born at this hospital.
Wow.
So
one of the rare
she's an Alderney girl, yeah.
Wow, I love that. Well, that is always a thing. When you say to someone like, are you from Alderney? It's like, well, I am, but I was born in Guernsey.
Yeah.
And then you meet people who were actually born here.
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? Because I mean, we don't have the facilities on Alderney like they do in Guernsey and the rest of the UK. But I imagine at some point in history that there wasn't a thing people thought about. It was like, you had your baby where you had your baby.
Yeah, you did at home or wherever.
Yeah, I think young ladies used to go off to a forest and have a baby and come back to the market stall.
Maybe
that was it. I got a baby now. Well, I'm glad that we're no longer in those times. Yeah. What was it like raising your children on this island?
Good. It was very, very good. There was, as I say, there's always been this freedom thing, so that was wonderful. And then education. It got to a point where our eldest son, if you like, he went over to grammar school at 16. He had the opportunity to go at 11, but we didn't want him to. We felt that, for us personally, that was too young. Not everybody does feel the same, but for us. And in those 2 years at grammar school, he blossomed. And then he took a year out and travelled to Australia on his own and everything at 18. So that was good. And then my other son went to uni in England. One son was going to do physio for a year, but he's going to do physio, but did a year and didn't like it. In the end, he did jobs, carpentry, electrical, and then he did a law degree on Open University while he was working with a wife and child. So he's achieved. And my other son is assistant faculty at a college in Southampton, or just out of Southampton. So they've really done well. And my daughter works at the hospital here. So there is a real connection,
Mm.
and the grandchildren love it here.
You must be so proud.
I'm very proud. You can see I'm sort of rising. It does give you a great deal of pride.
Well, I'm only just entering the phase of my life now where all my friends are having kids. I've got a niece and a nephew now, and although it's not hit me yet,
But you've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, and it does seem like maybe it's a whole new world,
Yeah.
to have kids. And then obviously the idea of bringing up kids on Alderney. I mean, I don't see anywhere better in the world to bring up children.
No, as I say, we are so fortunate to be so lucky for children to have that freedom where I have a bit of an issue probably with mobile phones. In England, I fully understand why children have mobile phones because you're constantly probably wanting to keep contacting them to make sure they're all right. You don't seem to have that worry. I'm not saying that we should be blind to it because things can happen at any time.
Of course,
But
yeah.
I'm just saying that this freedom that you've got is
It's
incredible,
unbelievable, isn't it?
really.
I mean, I remember growing up here, and I went to school in the UK, but I'd come back here 5 or 6 times a year. And
Yeah.
the moment you step off the plane here, I'm already planning like to go climb Fort Albert today, and Mum and Dad will be in the Georgian, like that, and you just do, because and there's no such thing as stranger danger because you know everyone.
Yeah.
And as you were saying earlier, you walk down Victoria Street and you're waving to people. It takes me absolutely ages to go to the supermarket because you go into the supermarket and next thing you know, you're seeing all the people you've grown up with in your life, and you're like, oh my God. And it's
that's wonderful. I remember, I think my grandson was about 9, and I was driving up through town, and then we were walking, and I was saying hello, 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 and then he suddenly turned to me. He said, "Grandad, you must be the most famous person on Alderney." He said, "Because everybody knows you." So
that is true.
But that's for everybody though.
Yeah.
Because we all know, and I things when people coming over, Ellis Downs as an example, I always knew summer was here when Ellis arrived.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things. But
it's mad, isn't it?
It is mad.
It's mad. Yeah. I actually struggle to explain to people because obviously I go back to the UK a lot to work, and I've lived around the world, and I remember I was having lunch with the Dutch Prince in the Hall of Knights in Den Haag. Now I'm not trying to drop names here. It was a very former life of mine, but I was supposed to be there on business to talk about cryptocurrencies and stuff like this. And I spent the whole time talking about Alderney.
Yeah.
And and it's fascinating how quickly you realize that this business talk that I'm about to have is going to be really boring. So let me tell them about a place called Alderney. And you just infectious. You just can't help it. But
Exactly.
you want to share the message. You want to tell people.
When I was at primary school in England, I used to constantly talk about Alderney. They called me a fantasist, that I was making up fairy stories, which surprised me even more because they were teachers and that they didn't know that a place called Alderney actually existed. So there was that. Something else I do, whenever I go away anywhere in the world, I always take about 3 or 4 Alderney brochures with me, and I leave them at wherever it is I'm going. I'll just either leave it in the drawer at a hotel, or I'll leave it on the reception where there's books or things like that.
Wow. So you're the one doing all that.
Well, no, but it's just I because I care passionately, as you do, about the island, and I want people to know about it.
It's mad, isn't it? It really does feel like the best private members club in the world that you cannot buy your way into.
No.
You have to spend time here. You have to be, I mean, you do slip very quickly into community life here. If you think you're coming here for a quiet life, you are very wrong.
Yeah.
Because before you know it, you'll find that you're useful a lot more on this island than you are, in other places.
Oh, yeah.
You wear many, many hats.
I do.
And you have done all your life. Before we go into some of your recent activities, tell me a little bit more about your career, or like what you've done sort of, growing up and working on Alderney.
I think the first thing I need to say, I never achieved any qualifications at school. I left at 15. I've not really got very good memories of school. Maybe it was because of the bullying, or maybe it was so Um, so of that. So as I say, I didn't have the qualifications, but I did it.
You turned out pretty good.
Well, I think I turned out okay. I did painting and decorating, which I still do occasionally, and I did community radio for about 8 years. I've been involved with fundraising for many years, from all different things. When I was 14, I started doing bingo calling for the football club, and then just carried on doing it until about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago when I actually retired from that. What else? I've been a Jurat. I am a Jurat actually until my last court is on the 11th of September.
Oh, fantastic! And then you'll be done.
I'll be done, and I'll be in my 21st year doing that.
What is a Jurat? Because I've never actually understood this.
A Jurat, in those days, I remember I was working at the airport, and somebody said, "Oh, the chairman of the court is in the office," and my immediate reaction was, "What have I done wrong?" That really was my immediate. And he said, "Oh, Dougal," he said, "just like to say you're at the top of our list." And I said, "I'm on a list?" So he said, "Yeah." He said, "We would like you to consider becoming a Jurat." I was really shocked. I'm not often shocked, but I was really shocked.
Did you know what that responsibility entailed?
Not initially. I just know that it's a very respected position on the island. Well, when you do join, you're reminded by the chairman of the court, or chairwoman as is now, that it is a very highly respected. So anyway, when it sunk in a little bit, I said, "Well, firstly, I'm very honoured that you've asked me." I said, "But I think I would like to discuss it with my family first, because obviously it's a small community, so you have to be, there's lots of things maybe that might not go right." Or I just discussed it with my family, and they were very, very supportive and said, you should do it. So as I say, I've got a big birthday coming up on the 22nd in September, but my last court is actually on the 11th of September.
So as a juror, is it a judge? Is that what it is?
It's the equivalent of a magistrate.
Right, and that would be when there's crime on the island, or anything else?
You have a police court and you have a civil court. I would just say that we're not trained as lawyers or anything like that. So we are lay people, but with good common sense and knowledge, if you like, over the years and everything like that. A bit like a jury system, I guess, in England. And you have a police court, maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks, and then you have civil court in the afternoon. So there's the different things you have to deal with, if you like, is that with a police court, when you're making decisions, you have to be 100% certain, so there's no reasonable doubt before you pass a sentence on somebody, and only 51% in civil court.
Right.
So there's quite a difference. But as I say, the one thing I have always been through my life, I think, is fair and don't prejudge people. And I think you have to be a certain type of person to be able to do that. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it's difficult, but it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And sometimes I would say, even if people don't necessarily like the sentence that you've passed, they accept it because they know it is a process of the law. So,
and they must know you as well, like in the community.
Well, there are some people that know me, but I have to say that if there's any conflict at all, so if there was anything, somebody might stop me in the street for instance, and make a reference to a possible case coming up, then the first thing I would do is go to the court, to the chairman or chairwoman or the greffier, and said, "Look, I'm not able to sit on this particular case because I feel that it would be, or would have been compromised.
Mm.
So you have to do
And
things
is
like
there
that.
more than one Jurat then? Do you have?
On the island, yes,
Mm.
we've actually got 8 Jurats at the moment.
Oh wow.
So a lot of that is so you've got cover if anybody's off either sick or on holiday or something like that, so we can all do things like that.
So, and then you just said a graphia? Is that
Greffier,
a graphia? So
Greffier.
what does a graphia do?
He's the one that when you open the court, or the state's meeting is the same. He opens the court and does the Lord's Prayer in French.
In French?
In French, yeah.
Why French? That's
Well,
crazy.
because all the robes and everything that we wear are French. So it is all, if you like, part of there's still a lot of
The
French
tradition.
law.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy, man.
Yeah.
Wow, I thought we hated the French. This is like
Well,
we're 7 miles away from them.
I wouldn't say that we hate the French. I think it's more likely that the French hate everybody.
Yeah.
Probably including the French, I would say. But,
Absolutely.
But no, so it is
So
very
it's
much.
very traditional. So then within a court hearing, you have a greffier that opens it.
Yep.
And then you have one Jurat, is that right?
No. You have
all of you are there.
For police court, all Jurats are sitting.
And then you have the I guess the person who's being accused of something.
Yeah.
And then is there like lawyers?
You have defense and prosecution.
And your job is to essentially write a sentence or say,
well, to see the two sides of a story.
wow.
And then make a very sound judgment on that. And sometimes we have the power, if you like, to imprison somebody for up to a year.
Wow. I'll best be careful around you then, mate.
And then it's if we thought it was more severe than that, then it would go to Guernsey.
Interesting. This is such a different side to you because, you know, I've only ever known you for being the radio fundraising guy who's just, you know, I'd hate to appear before you.
Well, something else is very quite often I've been stopped, for instance, if there's petitions or something going around, would you please sign this petition? And I'll say, I'm sorry, I can't, because I have to be completely impartial, which is right and proper.
Absolutely, yeah.
Actually, because you can't be, you know, you do have to be impartial.
But we don't really have a very high crime rate here, do we? We're very lucky here.
We're incredibly lucky.
The crime rate here for me is such a big appeal for why you'd want. I mean, I've been living in London a lot of my life, and you know, to hear stories of my friends getting mugged for their phones, or I mean, I was living in a warehouse for a couple of years in North London, and a bullet went through someone's window and lodged into their wardrobe, and you're like, this is just, it's mad, you know. So like to get people from the UK who come here, I do laugh sometimes when I see the policemen who are on rotation. They come over here with their stab-proof vest, and I'm like, "You hot?"
Yeah, I know, but it's be prepared or prepare to fail.
There you go. And you know, I respect that. I really do. But the type of crime that you mostly deal with on the island, I can't imagine it's very serious criminal acts.
No. I think over the years, because everything, if you like, that I'm discussing with you is in the public domain.
Yeah, of course.
It is. So driving offences or things like that, people sort of need to realise about. You shouldn't be using a mobile phone, for instance, when driving or things like that. So it's if you like, petty crime. But needless to say, you still need police and you still need judiciary. So you need to. Sometimes people forget that. Perhaps, you know, because there's such a freedom, and you notice it more in the summer. And I'm not having a go at visitors or anything like that, but when you arrive on Alderney, as you get off the plane, you sort of go, don't you? And you relax.
Yeah.
And sometimes people perhaps get a little bit too relaxed.
I bet you must have dealt with a lot of drunk and disorderly.
There has been.
Yeah.
There has been. But again, it's really in the minority. We are so fortunate. And you think, let me use Alderney Week as an example. We have so much fun in Alderney Week, and so many people, and so little crime and things like that. So we need to embrace that, and we need to appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know, there's plenty of times where people have woken up and they go, "Where's my car?" And
Exactly.
and they'll find that someone's nicked their car and driven it somewhere
And parked it to wherever they were going.
yeah. And that's just it's a weird thing, but I really do respect what you were just saying there about the fact we need the law in order to have this freedom, in order to be safe. I really do respect that.
Which actually was the main reason that I did become a Jurat, because I love the island so much. I love the people. We've got a wonderful way of life. We've got wonderful people, and I just want to preserve that in the best way possible. And hopefully, I've done that over the years.
Absolutely, I'm very, very grateful for you to. And talking about Alderney Week, I had a great opportunity. I interviewed Ray Parkin many years ago now, and it brought back, you know, all these sort of memories of growing up here and seeing this kind of this like self sovereignty that people can have here. This ability to just go up and do stuff,
Yeah.
get involved in things. And then that is kind of like, that's why I think, you know, a lot of people like coming here and I bet you never thought you were going to be a Jurat.
No, I never did. And
No.
I'm still, even to this day, surprised that it happened. So I don't. Even I was quite surprised when you asked me to come and do an interview, actually. But you don't realise, you just go about your normally daily life, and you're enveloped in the way of life, and with the people. And I know that when you've come in and I've interviewed you, for instance, you've been happy to come in, and that's wonderful. And that's ideally what I like. I want people to be relaxed, because I think we're more ourselves
I think so,
when
yeah.
we're relaxed, and we're not putting on airs and graces or things like that. So
The one thing I love about sharing these stories is it binds a lot of people together. You know, the videos that I get to make are not like created from nothing. They're just documenting the things that happen, you know, and I've met so many amazing people here. I'm struggling to leave. You know, I came back here 2 years ago to film a movie
Yeah.
about mental health. And I ended up just getting very busy very, very quickly. You know, there's always something to do here, and there's always someone that you could help, you know, but there's something really fulfilling about that. Like, you know, to be useful in a day and age where technology seems to be taking over all of our.
Perhaps you don't do yourself enough justice either, because what you've achieved, I remember from your video of when you were going around the island on a skateboard, to you sell the island so well. The thing that you did down at the school, incredible. But your love of the island comes across, and you can't beat that, because it's what gets people in. And maybe to some people that have never even seen this island, you've given them something, that a bit of fulfillment, I would say.
Well, thank you very much. That's why I refuse to take my hat off. I've had a few people comment saying that I should stop wearing a cap.
Why?
Well, apparently 32-year-old men don't wear baseball caps. But it's part of my personal brand. You know, like if I didn't wear a cap, people wouldn't.
Listen, I've never worried about fashion on this island. It'll eventually come round and catch me up again.
Yeah.
Because that's it. But
Yeah.
the thing is, if you're happy wearing your hat, you should wear your hat.
Thank you.
It's
I appreciate
not really
that.
what.
Is this official court decision? He can
No,
wear his hat.
this is my own
Thank you.
personal
Yeah.
thing. But you should do.
Well, when I name dropped earlier about having lunch with a member of the Dutch royal family, I was not only wearing my hat, but I was also wearing my Alderney jumper.
Quite
So
right, too.
I'm absolutely happy to be authentic, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the nice thing about Alderney as well, is that, you know, when a lot of, you know, you don't know if you're stood next to a multimillionaire or whatever, because you couldn't spend your millions of pounds here. You know, there's no casinos, there's no this, so you could bring your Prada
Never judge a
bags.
book by its cover.
Never judge a book by its cover. But I love that, like the summertime when, you know, the weather gets nice, those second homeowners come over with their families, and we love that. We love having that, because I mean, it feels like when I was growing up, there was this like locals and grockles thing, and it felt like that was like the zeitgeist of the island. Is like, oh, it's the locals versus the grockles. And I was like, oh, you know. And then over the years, you realize that actually, no, that's what kept the island going. It was
Yes.
this cyclical You know, we don't want everyone here all year round, but when they are here, sun's shining.
We need grockles,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
like. We need people to come and see us, and we've got something good to offer, which maybe we don't always promote in perhaps the way I would like us to, but we've got so much to offer. And encourage people. Alderney Week is just one, the play that Lee was telling me about. But what we've got on this island is the most brilliant bunch of volunteers that you could have anywhere in the world. And if you want anything done, get a volunteer to do it, and usually there's a leader there somewhere, but they're only leading because they're as good as the people around them. They can't do it on their own.
It's amazing,
and
isn't
as
it?
long as we keep appreciating that.
You have to, yeah.
I mean, your dad has been doing stuff for years. I mentioned about Stars for Your Eyes because we did that, and hopefully we might be doing one next year. And your dad is happy to be involved, he said. So I look forward to that.
Brilliant. And it does seem like the events, I mean, we don't promote the events enough, you know, on this island, but if you're here and you're, you know, even like the hill climb, you know, when you're seeing all these racing cars coming over to the island, you know, you've got the literary festival.
Yeah.
I always say literally festival. The literary festival.
Yeah.
You've got, I mean, what more do you want, really? I mean, would you like to see any additional events happening?
I would like. Well,
We don't have anything for history, do we?
Not. We've got nothing as a history, but we've got so much history.
So much history.
And then what
Surrounded by
I do
it.
think is you get all these people now going all over the world, and I'll briefly use the word America because they want to stop people filming in England for American films and stuff like that. We've got a perfect place for making movies here.
Can you imagine?
I can actually, and I think personally that we should encourage people to do that. We've got so
Well,
much
I
to
would say that I was the first filmmaker to bring a film crew over here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But my dad was making movies here back in the day. I believe you must have been in a few of them, weren't you?
I don't know. I don't think I actually was in many of the movies.
Well, I mean, because there was
I know people that was, Steve Collins and people like that.
And of course, Eliza Berriford. I mean, there's a great documentary called Alderney, The Great Escape, which I always love watching. It was made in the late 80s, 90s. Eliza Berriford was narrating. Ray Parkin was narrating. You see Victoria Street just absolutely booming, you know. You remember Tommy's and you know,
of course, the gift shop,
that, and but you know, and this is kind of where it does feel different, you know, and you know, obviously with an aging demographic, it is changing. The vibe is changing, and it's hard to understand because we're not going to get the same Grockles locals thing that we had before.
But what is good, if you like, is those Grockles stroke locals that were coming here then. Their children are coming. Their grandchildren are coming. You know, so there's still this.
Actually, that's the resurgence that I'm loving. The fact right now is the grandkids. You know, you get these real young, children, and you see them playing on the beaches. And
I mean, my eldest grandson's going to be 16 this year.
Oh wow!
In October.
Oh, so Granddad's got to start getting a bit more active then.
Well, yeah, I would like to, but I'm sort of. You know, but I've had an active life. I've done well. I've done marathons, and I've done a marathon, the London Marathon, many years ago. But,
oh wow!
So I have done things. Played football until I broke my neck playing football.
You broke your neck playing football
in Guernsey. Yeah.
Dude, what the?
I was doing a diving header and collided with the goalkeeper's hip. But in those days, there wasn't really the first aid, so they stood me up. And then I didn't even go to the hospital. Came home, was in agony when I got back here. My wife knew there was something wrong with me, took me down the hospital. Then they were running around and said, "Is there a problem?" He said, "Yes, you've broken your neck." So my third vertebrae down on the side there that sticks out is snapped completely. So yeah, so that curtailed my sporting a wee bit.
Dude, you've just blown this interview up. I can't. This is going to be headline news.
Well,
but I'm not surprised because I was just chatting to Rob Kirkland about the football club, and I've seen a few of the matches, and the way that I mean, he was describing it as guys going on a hunt. you know, and that ball is the, you know, is the prey. And when I see two football players going after the same ball, I'm like, oh no, someone's going to
Because
break their
Guernsey
neck.
and Jersey don't like coming up for the Marathi, because yes, they do win, but they are in such a battle.
They really are, aren't they?
They
really
know,
are.
they know they're in a battle when they come up. We only lost 2-0 this year, you know,
Wow.
and that was it used to be 15-16-0.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's because you're too busy breaking your bloody neck, mate. That's
well,
crazy. I can't believe you broke your neck
yeah,
playing
no,
football.
nor can I really, but then these things do
Well,
happen.
I'm so glad that you didn't sever the main.
So am I. It
Yeah, I
could have been a
mean,
whole different. I'd have been up here in a chair, but
oh God, yeah, no.
yeah.
If that really, I mean, that's crazy. And so, what other sports did you take part in on this
I
island?
used to. I used to love badminton. I used to do that as well, and running. When I was training for the marathon, I ran a lot.
And you
I did.
trained over here then?
Yeah, I trained over here.
Ah, so
Yeah,
what's your running? What was it? Your routes over here? What was your favorite routes to
I
do?
used to run around the island pretty much the same way all the other time, and people used to say, "Why do you keep going the same way?" I said, "Well, it doesn't matter which way I go. It's the same route, so it didn't matter to me." And actually, the hill training here is perfect for a marathon.
Mm.
So it was.
So you'd run the whole distance of the island?
I did about 22.5 miles 2 weeks before I did the marathon.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many times around the island is that?
It was about three and a bit.
3 and a bit times.
So yeah, and yeah, but I was very pleased how I did.
Wow. I've really only started running recently and
Yeah.
and dabbling a little bit. But these days, you know, you got your headphones in and you're, you know, listening to a podcast or
I
something.
never
And
had headphones in those days.
no, I bet.
No,
I
it was the
bet.
wind whistling through your ears and stuff like that then.
Yeah.
But
And then what about swimming?
I used to swim a lot in England, actually,
really?
at all the swimming pools. Yeah, quite all over the place.
Oh well, if only we had a swimming pool here,
Yeah,
we'd
well, that perhaps is another story. But no, the beach. I mean,
What's your favorite beach?
um, well, I like Bray. I
Me too.
like Corblets. I lived many years when Whitegates was there. I lived at Whitegates, and
Really?
Longy used to be our beach then.
Ah.
So yeah, lots of different things.
Isn't it
really.
mad that you can just the beaches here are just phenomenal. The golden sand,
Yeah,
there's never anyone on them.
yeah.
You know, that's not always a good thing,
There
but
was a guy called Rich Clark. There is a guy called Rich Clark that used to do Heart FM, and he came over for Rock the Rock. Funny enough, and he came over for the first time, and he went and he had loads of people on his blogs and stuff looking at him. He just wanted a bit of space to get his program ready for the Monday. He was sat in the middle of the Lungy with a high tide, a glorious sunny day, and he said, "I can't believe I'm sitting here in paradise planning my show for next week," and it went viral. His thing. He said, "You cannot believe that this place actually exists." And that's the type of thing that we've got to offer. We just need sometimes people to push it a bit.
well, I'm sure these things will happen. Alderney time is a lot
Yeah.
slower than anything else. As we know, if you're getting anything built on the island, I'm sure you'll be part of a very long backlog of jobs to do.
Yes.
Talking of, so Whitegates is gone now, is it? I
It's
think
flattened.
flattened. Yeah,
Absolutely
I
flattened.
went past it the other day. I thought there was a
Yeah,
building
yeah.
here.
That in the end, it seemed to be slow in progressing, and then it went down in about 3 days.
Wow. What was, I mean, because that was must not be that old, surely. I mean, that must have been built 50 years ago, 40 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. No, over 40 years ago.
Right.
50, 60 years
So do you know
ago.
what's going to happen there now? Is it
No, I don't.
just
I
it actually looks kind of nice.
Yeah,
It looks nice to be
because
able
there
to see
used
the
to be
Hammond
houses on the
Memorial.
other side as well.
I didn't know
Quite
that.
little cottages, yeah.
Wow.
But so
Well, there's
interesting.
always a lot of building going on this island. Like there's these scaffolding up everywhere. It's nice to see the Bellevue.
Yes,
It's
because that was getting ready for Christmas lights, I thought.
yeah. I
But
used to love the Bellevue.
we all did.
Yeah, that
We
was
all
such a
did.
good pub.
The
You
Pink
mu-
Palace.
The Pink Palace. What were your favourite pubs growing up
Well, I
on the
worked at the
island?
Bellevue for many years, behind the bar, and also taxi driving, because there used to be Bellevue taxis. So used to do that as well. But there used to be about 21, 22 pubs on the island.
Wow. That
So
says a lot about the
yeah, the
population.
culture.
Yeah, but every pub does have a different culture. I mean, maybe there's less pubs now, and so everyone's kind of moving into to the same ones. I mean, I remember the Albert. There was always fights in the Albert.
Yeah, Albert. There
Uh,
was the Chez Andre, which is where the farm shop is now. And that was the posh part, if you like, was the grill bar. And the not posh part was the bilge bar, was where
right.
you go in
Yeah, yeah,
to the
yeah,
farm shop now. So it
yeah.
was
Wow. And we've just lost the Campania.
lost the
We
campaign. Very
might.
sad.
It is, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
death by a thousand cuts. You're
yeah,
really hoping that someone can come in and say, "Well, I've always wanted to run a pub.
yeah.
Let's open a
So,
pub." You
and
know.
then we won't. I don't think we'll even discuss the airport because it's sad at the moment with the um, runway, but
Mhm.
hopefully that does get sorted out. And I see now that there's possible a couple of links coming from Jersey.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm actually going to be interviewing Max Bolliard,
okay,
who's the young lad who set up that water taxi.
it's due
Um,
in today, I think.
I believe it is. Yeah, well, that's where I'm going to go see if I can grab a little interview with him.
Yeah.
And he's around my age, so like
Yep.
it does take young blood to come in and upstart and do things. And
Yeah.
and I think sometimes on this island especially, sometimes passing over the baton isn't always an easy thing to do, especially if there isn't someone available,
Yeah.
and maybe someone does something that you don't even understand what they want to do. But
No.
I think that progress does happen here. If you really want something done on Alderney, you can make it happen. It might
You
take a bit
definitely
of
can, and I think if it's done with sympathy and it's done with cooperation, and most importantly, if it's done in the best interest of Alderney, I think Alderney has somehow got a benefit
mm,
from it. And I don't just mean financially, but I think the people have got a benefit from it. And the people that are doing it needs to understand, if you like, the culture of Alderney perhaps a little bit and understand the real strength of feeling and
mm,
passion that people have about the island. I remember once when there was a big issue with the breakwater, um, one of the then politicians said, "I do wish sometimes the people of Guernsey had the same um, passion as the people of Alderney." And even when we had, in hindsight now, when the metal jetty used to be down there, my wife was on there as a child holding a placard up saying, "Save our jetty." Well,
oh, I love
sadly,
that.
that didn't work.
Yeah, it
But
gone.
yeah,
Well, I think was it Barbara Benfield organised the protest on the breakwater.
quite possibly.
I thought that was fantastic.
Mhm.
But that's the thing is that, you can campaign for things
You
on this
can.
island, and rightfully so. I think there's a lot of examples I can think of people coming from the UK to try and, make something happen here. But if you don't like Alderney or if you're not in love with this island, then actually it's like whatever great scheme you think you're going to do here, just forget about it because like the community
You
comes
need to
first.
accept Alderney for what it is, with all its little quaint little things. You need to embrace it.
Mm.
And I think if you embrace Alderney, it'll embrace you.
I think Alderney's embraced both of us very well. I mean, we're communicators, we're people who like telling stories, and
Mhm.
there's nothing nicer for me than having someone come and say to me that they've listened to one of my pieces. Well, I mean, you must be sick of all the stories. I can't believe it. You must have literally heard every single story, literally from the horse's mouth, as it's all happened in real time.
Sometimes no, but I never get sick of it, and I think a bit like you really. If I do interviews on the radio with many different people, and I spoke to a politician last week, for instance. Um, Everybody, when I've done interviews for people standing for states, um, people have said to me afterwards, "Thank you for being fair and honest and asking questions that us as a member of public would like to ask." And that is the way that I try and do things. And so, no, it's always nice.
Mm.
It's a bit actually a bit humbling and a bit embarrassing sometimes, but it's nice that people do appreciate it.
Well, I'm learning a lot because I can sometimes suffer from my own judgmental feelings, and the story I tell myself isn't always the right story. And I think sometimes when you're interviewing someone, you have an agenda or you have something you want to say. And I've always learned from you that you're always, you always keep everything very open, and you let them answer something and whatever they want to talk about. And I don't think there's a bad person on this island. Like I really, I don't think you'd be here if you're a bad person.
No, I couldn't. Perhaps as I'm getting older, I am getting less tolerant. So I think I'd possibly be more inclined to perhaps say something, and especially when I retire as a Jurat in September.
Oh, wow.
I might be even a bit less tolerant then, perhaps.
Oh my God, we're going to have to get you back on the show, mate. We'll have to do a 2.0. Yeah, spill the beans.
But I am a very tolerant person. And,
would you ever write a book about all the interviews
I couldn't write. I think I'd have to get somebody like yourself or AI to possibly do it, because I just haven't got the knowledge to do it, really. Yeah. But they say there's a book in everyone.
I think so, yeah.
But it's. I think my biggest fear would be that it would be interesting enough for those people, really.
Oh, well, I think that's up to the people to decide.
Of course.
Who is the most interesting interview you've had? I know it's hard to say one, but I mean, do any of the interviews that you've done over, I mean, how many years have you been a radio presenter for?
I've done radio for about over 15 years, I guess. Wow. But I like really honest people that are unassuming and have done things. I remember one of the funniest ones I did. I don't know if you know. There was. I need to be careful here. There was about a lady and a sister who just come back from the supermarket and locked themselves out of the house, and the keys were on the coffee table, and she started to climb through the window. And as she did, her top slipped down. So if you like, she was in the window, and so were her boobs. And the girl was laughing. I interviewed them, and they were incredible. And
yeah, that went viral, didn't it?
That just from the interview that I did with them, there were millions and millions of views on that.
Crazy,
so it was something. I think something that makes you laugh. Something where people don't take themselves too seriously. But sometimes doing an interview is difficult because the word blood out of a stone comes to mind, because it's very hard to extract something if people aren't giving. It is a two-way thing. So you have to maybe ask a question that you might not get the answer, and then maybe try and redirect that question in another way to hopefully draw the question. But I don't think I've had a bad interview or somebody said I wish I hadn't have had them, because they're all different. But and I hope I've still got a bit of time to maybe have some.
Hell yeah, of course you do.
More interesting.
Yeah,
interviews.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do this so often. My only wish is that you'd film them all. Because I know they've all been done, but in a social media age where everyone wants to flick onto Facebook or Instagram and just watch, it'd be really good if we could get you a camera.
The odd thing is, the last one I did was with a Guernsey politician, and we filmed it, so it is on the Facebook page.
You know what? I think I saw that.
Yeah, but somebody made a statement, said, if you can see it, it's not radio.
Oh, interesting.
So it obviously doesn't suit everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I did watch it actually, but it also looked like it was filmed on a potato. So I don't know what the camera was.
I don't know. We need somebody, obviously, with your experience.
We'll
and maybe get something set up a bit more permanent.
I think so. Yeah, because actually it should be just as easy as what you do, just flicking a switch and suddenly people can see your face. Because I think you have the most famous voice on this island. Yeah, I can hear your voice. I just walk around the house and I just hear your voice, and I'm like, well, who's got the radio on right now?
Well, it's nice to know you're listening, but my dulcet tones, you don't. I'm very uncomfortable.
Well, no, because you say, and there we are, and there we are.
Repetitive.
No, but you have mannerisms, and we all do. I say mad a lot. I don't know why. It's just
yeah. But we I was told once for saying okay too much.
Okay, well, that's
And then another bit of good advice I had from somebody is when I did one of my first interviews, this person said to me, "You're not smiling at the radio enough." And I
Oh,
said, "I'm not quite sure what you mean by that." And I said, "Well, if you just said, 'Hello, my name is Dougal, and I'm,' but if you say, 'Hello, my name is Dougal,' and it was just that little thing that something suddenly clicked and said, actually, yeah, I get that now because that's coming across on the other end of the radio."
that's a fantastic piece of advice. I'm going to
Yeah.
remember that. I mean, thankfully, I'm always being filmed, so I'm always conscious of
You are.
not looking like I'm bored of being there. But you've never sounded bored. And actually, I mean, you have a very interesting choice of music. I mean, your music is so you have so many different genres and things. Where does your love for music come from?
I don't know. I think maybe as a kid I'd probably listen to music a lot. I used to listen to things like Radio Luxembourg and all sort of Radio Caroline and all sorts of things like that. But I also like Glenn Miller, and I like big band music, and I like film scores, and I like all that sort of stuff. But interestingly enough, somebody said to me, "So how do you set up your program? How do you do it? You know, how your playlist and everything?" Everything I do is random. Everything I've ever done is random. I just, what I hope to do is I'm going to play something of a song that, yes, I like it, but I think other people will like it as well. Now, some people, quite rightly, they've scripted their program and they've got a particular playlist, but I've never, and I don't think I'll ever do it that way.
I love that. And they're asking you what your process is. You're like,
Yeah,
what's your process? It's like,
yeah.
same as you, I guess. Yeah.
Instantaneous, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I can be very lucky, and lots of people I get saying I'm really loving the music, because I do 60s and 70s is my favourite, because it I just I'd say they're proper musicians, if you like. Back in the day, they were playing their own instruments and things like that. And just as an example, I listened to the Wurzels on a radio program yesterday. Their new single is done by AI.
Uh,
And
um,
we've had this discussion, haven't we?
we have indeed. Yeah. It is scary, isn't it? I mean,
It is a bit scary.
yeah, particularly for like I think creative people, podcasters as well, or radio presenters. I mean, the fact that yeah, I mean, you've got enough of your voice out there in the world that AI could, clone your voice.
Would they want to? Really?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe one day riding a radio, even in your death, will not let you go.
Well,
Uh,
that's nice. I hope they wouldn't fit, not just me, but other people, because I think what you've said sort of at the outset of the interview is that we need a library, perhaps,
mm,
of people, sadly, that we didn't do, and it's with great regret now, I think, is that people we should have had so much more, because they had so much to offer,
mm.
and it just, I think the best way is when we can play something and it just brings a smile to your face.
Oh, it's
I
amazing.
think it says it all,
Yeah,
really.
I really love the fact that you have all these presenters as well. So, like, when you hear Jenny Rowley doing her thing, or now Ellis Downs has got his own little
The local
show.
vicar.
Yeah, and the local vicar,
Yeah,
Mother
Mother Sam.
Samantha.
Yeah,
Jeez, well, she's a great addition to the island, isn't she?
yeah,
She's
indeed. Yeah,
absolutely
she's a
brilliant.
breath of fresh air.
This is what happens every so often, is that new people come around and they do get stuck in,
Yeah,
and then suddenly you remind yourself why actually this island is going to be okay,
yeah.
and that yes, changes and challenges will come, but so will new people, and
Which is just what Alderney needs.
apparently so. What's your legacy then, Dougal? What do you want to leave
Uh,
behind in this great world?
Legacy, I don't know. You see, I've never thought of myself of having a legacy. I just sort of thought of, I'll get on with my life and in my own little way. And I think my legacy is, you were talking about children and grandchildren, that they speak of things with a real fondness. I mean, as I said, my grandson, I hope he's not going to be too embarrassed, but he's going to be 16 this year. But I tell him that I love him, and he tells me the same, and he's not ashamed to do that. And when, if you like, in my time as a child, it almost wasn't done in that way by your family. Yes, they did love you, but you never conversed in that way to say, my dad maybe would go out and have a few drinks, and then he'd say, "That's my boy," or something like that. And that was perhaps in that day, that was their way of doing things. But so if there is a if there is a legacy, I would hope that people will remember me with some fondness, and I'm sure not everybody will, and I accept that because that's what you get going through life, and say, actually, he was an all right guy. He was, I liked speaking to him, and he was always there. He'd listen and he'd always speak to you. So I suppose if there was going to be a legacy, I'd quite like that.
I
That
love
you've
that.
been perhaps well thought of, and you think, yeah, he's done all right in his life. And as I pointed out from the start of not having any exams or everything, I think I've turned out
You turned
okay.
out all right, didn't
Yeah.
you? Well,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
doing this chat. Obviously, we can listen to you if we go on to rydunaradio.com.
Yep.
We can all listen to you whenever.
Yep.
And so I'd encourage people to go out and listen. And what's the rest of your day got in store then?
Well, I'm probably going to go and do some shopping because we've got somebody coming over from Jersey on the ferry today,
Brilliant.
for the weekend. So we've got that, and then I've got the radio this weekend, tomorrow morning and Sunday morning, and we're doing a mystery voice at the moment, which is
Ooh.
really exciting. It was Lee Fluitt last week. Actually, quite a few people thought it was your dad.
Ah, wow. Lee, my dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's interesting. So we've got people from all walks of life on Alderney. So don't be surprised to find perhaps yourself on there one day.
Please do.
And it's interesting. It's good. So life is good.
I love it. Well, best of luck
Yeah.
with the rest of your day, and
Thank
obviously great. We have a great summer coming up.
Yeah. And thank you for sparing the time.
Thank you, Dougal.